2016 was chock full of major stories, both at home and abroad, that turned heads and challenged people's expectations. We look back on some of the biggest news events discussed here on News Inside in our year in review. Stay tuned for more. Welcome to News Inside. I'm An Jung-hyun. Let's welcome back our panelists. Professor Shin Sang-hyuk from Kyung University Graduate School of International Studies is with us. And Dr. Pong Young-sik from Yonsei University Institute for North Korean Studies joins us as well. The year 2016 was full of unexpected twists and turns. Today, we look back on some of the biggest news and newsmakers of the year. First, here's a look at the top events in Korea.
The biggest news story of the year that engulfed the Korean public was first and foremost the power abuse scandal. Allegations came to light in October, and those suspected of being involved, including Choi Soon-sil and other key players, have since been detained. A special probe has officially kicked off while the president awaits the final decision on whether she will be impeached. One of the biggest issues on the economic front was corporate restructuring in the shipping and shipbuilding sectors. The two industries once had led growth in the country but are now facing an overhaul driven by the government since June. The AntiCorruption Act took effect amid great interest from the public. A short-term dip in spending is considered inevitable, but is seen as a positive step towards creating a fair and just society. Ranking fifth is the 20th general elections, which took place on April 13th and handed the opposition a parliamentary majority for the first time in 16 years. Meanwhile, North Korea went ahead with 2 nuclear tests, pushing inter-Korean relations further into frosty territory. Seoul responded by closing the inter-Korean Kaesong industrial complex. But continuous provocations from the north set off fresh jitters within the south, leading to the decision to deploy the U.S. missile defense system THAAD. The battery is expected to be deployed in 2017 to the county of Seongju-gun in Gyeongsangbuk-do province, to a site that's currently a golf course. The dreaded bird flu outbreak, which commonly hits the country in the winter, is yet again taking a toll on the country. More than 26 million birds have been culled since the first case was confirmed in mid-November, sending the price of some food products soaring and troubling related industries. And last was news of the toxic humidifier disinfectant scandal, which claimed many lives and triggered public outrage. A special investigation was launched this year to hold those involved accountable.
There were plenty of big stories in Korea this year, but in the last few months, the Choi Soon-sil scandal pretty much dominated the headlines, and that still seems to be the case.
Yes, I think so. This scandal will hit Korea, for several months. As you know very well, right now, this case was, in the hands of the Constitutional Court. They are right now reviewing to make a final decision about this case. And the special prosecutors are investigating this scandal. They recall the persons involved in this scandal. So in every aspect, this case will be one of the most important and the case which drew a lot of attention from Korea. And those kind of things will be continued for a while.
Yes. The scandal eventually led lawmakers to vote to impeach the president, and the ensuing turmoil has been a big loss for the country. We have seen that the foreign media have been following this story closely as well.
Right. The interesting point that foreign media has been highlighting with regard to Choi Soon-sil scandals and the political impeachment of President Park Geun-hye has been focused on the gender issue in Korean society. I believe the major setback coming from these scandals will be the handicap that will be imposed upon the new generation of young South Korean girls and women, because they will be unfortunately compelled to fight against the bias that women are not really ready to tapping on a very dangerous area here in terms of political correctness, but the reality is that they will be forced to fight against this unfounded and exaggerated bias against women because of this failed presidency of President Park Geun-hye.
And in other political events, so we had the general elections in April, which gave the opposition parties a handsome victory and therefore the majority in parliament, making things a little more difficult for the ruling party. The ruling party itself is split into two now.
Yes, actually, it was really surprising, the result. At the April general election, the Minju Party got 123 seats. And then how about the Saenuri Party? Saenuri Party got only 122 seats. It was quite the surprise for us to see the outcomes of the general election. But anyway, very recently, even the Saenuri Party, which has been the representative conservative party in Korea, they were divided into two. So at the moment, the Saenuri Party just got 99 seats, which means that the Minju Party became the #1 political party in National Assembly. So certainly the outcomes of the April the general election was very shocked. And since that time on, because of this Choi scandal, I mean, the politics has been changed very rapidly.
Yes.
So it's quite difficult for us to even see what's going on in the politics in the near future.
It'll be very interesting because whether it was intended or not, we are experimenting parliamentary system because basically the presidency is vacated and we have multi-party contest in the National Assembly. And there is the president's office is occupied by the Conservative Party president, but the National Assembly is controlled by the opposition parties.
Plus,
so
we have the
Minju Party
presidential election coming up, and then there's talk of constitutional revision.
Right.
So everything seems to be up in the air.
So from now till the conclusion of the Choi scandal and the ruling of the Constitutional Court on the impeachment of president, we will have very valuable experience and important experiment of parliamentary system, which has been discussed as an alternative to current presidential system.
Right. Well, regarding North Korea, we saw a slew of missile and nuclear tests this year. What do you think was the most important underlying trend there?
The underlying trend is that North Korea has declared to the world that it will remain defiant regardless of the pressure imposed from outside world. North Korea has been firing missiles, almost 32 intercontinental missiles. It has conducted the Musda missile test 8 times in a given year, and nuclear test twice. Right? According to the usual scientific cycle to get the best result out of each nuclear experiment, country usually give 3 years for each cycle, but North Korea did not wait for 3 years to conduct nuclear tests. So Kim Jong-un has been busy pushing buttons to fire missiles. It's like North Korea has as many missiles as like Chinese emperors in the ancient times to celebrate, important holidays with fireworks. But I don't know how long North Korea can engage in such defiant behaviors with numerous provocations, because it will deplete its resources for the provocative action in the long run. And the provocations are subjected to the law of diminishing return. The outside world will become more and more indifferent and numb about North Korea behaving in a provocative way. So North Korea has to come up with a different strategy if it wishes to get the attention from the outside world.
Not surprisingly, all of this has led to icy inter-Korean relations, but there was another factor that made things worse, and that was Seoul's decision to close down the Kaesong industrial complex. It was intended to cut off any cash flows that could help North Korea with its arms development, but it did spur a lot of controversy.
Right. Still, that is one of the hot issues in Korean society. But if I quote what President Park Geun-hye delivered, actually she emphasized that, because of the Kaesong industrial complex, the South Korean companies provided about 616 billion won as a way of the payment for the salaries to the North Korean workers. Well, depending on the way of calculation, the amount even reached up to 1 trillion won. And then most of these, the money were used by North Korean regime to develop nuclear programs and nuclear weapon programs, and to develop the long-range missiles. Even though the President Park Geun-hye and then South Korean government failed to give an exact number, how much money out of this total money were used for these purposes. But anyway, she emphasized that this money can be used for the nuclear program development in North Korea and the long-range missile development program. So that's the reason why she decided to close down the Kaesong industrial complex. But when you look at the other side of the coin, there are some people, even though the Kaesong industrial complex has been used as a way of, source of the money for the development of nuclear program and the long-range missiles in North Korea. But that should be maintained because that was one of the symbols of the peaceful cooperation between two Koreas. By keeping the Kaesong industrial complex, maybe we can keep the channel for the dialogue between the two Koreas, and then by the cooperation in the name of the Kaesong industrial complex, we could affect directly or indirectly to the North Korean people, and particularly North Korean elite groups. And another thing which was pointed out by those who insist the Kaesong industrial complex should be reopened, that is the damages, economic damages given to the Korean businessmen. Actually, according to the report, about the 800 billion won damages were given to the Korean businessmen which entered into the Kaesong industrial complex. Only the insurance cover about 30% of damages for the Korean businessmen did business activities in Kaesong industrial complex. This is one of the practical aspects of the the aspect created by the shutdown of the Kaesong industrial complex. But as a conclusion, definitely we still have make a final decision. Particularly right now, President Park Geun-hye is impeached, so we can see many people insist that we have to reconsider the decision on the shutdown of the Kaesong industrial complex.
Well, in response to growing threats from North Korea, Seoul decided to deploy the U.S. missile defense system THAAD, which continues to be a divisive issue, not just domestically, but also among our neighboring countries.
Yeah, it is very interesting that the deployment of THAAD to South Korea has been treated like a very most important symbolic changes of the current international security regimes in competition between China, Russia on one hand, and the United States, Japan, and South Korea on the other hand. But we have to see the THAAD deployment as it is. It is not as significant as a fundamental change of the U.S.-South Korean security partnership or constitutional revision of Japan so that the self-defense forces of Japan will be deployed overseas without any restraint. It is what it is. It is to protect part of U.S. forces stationing in South Korea from potential nuclear attacks from North Korea. It's just a deployment of one battery. It's not deployment of multiple army divisions of the United States to South Korea. So we have to be realistic in assessing the likely impact of this scheduled deployment of missile defense system in South Korea without too much exaggeration of its likely or potential effect on the entire regional security dynamics.
And on the economic front, one of the biggest challenges was corporate restructuring in the shipping and shipbuilding industries. The government said it was inevitable, but there was some criticism about how things were handled, especially for some of the major shippers.
Well, the decision was made in the middle of the economic difficulties. As you know very well, the slowdown of the Chinese economy emerged as one of the challenges against the Korean economy. As you know very well, about the 50% Korean exports are under the influence of the sluggish Chinese economy. And then there was a Brexit. And then European Union is one of the two main polars supporting global economy. And because of the Brexit, the financial stability, global financial stability was hurted. And every global circumstances has been very less favorable for the Korean economy. And the second point, considering economic structure we have, Korean economic structure is heavily reliant on external trade. To increase the exports, we need the huge contribution of the shipping industries. But because of this decision, number one shippers in Korea, Hanjin, Haewon shipbuilders went bankruptcy. So because of this one, directly and indirectly, Korean export was hurted. So those kind of decisions, should be more reviewed, and then they should have to be more careful to make a final decision. But the just government make a decision. Of course, they have enough reason. But when we review the experiences of other major economies, particularly Northern European countries, when their ship industries face serious challenges, at the national level, they provide a huge support, full-fledged support. What kind of different reasons they had from ours? I think we have to review these kind of things in order to not to make another mistakes in the near future. But anyway, because of this decision, we cannot deny that the Korean economy has been damaged more than their expectation.
In the early part of this year, we've been discussing a lot of the reform measures proposed by the Blue House,
right,
and rejected at the National Assembly and by the labor union. It seems like the year 2016 has been really loud and noisy in terms of government and the labor unions clashing on very controversial reform measures, but
somehow they lost steam.
Right, lost the steams, and with all the fuss and the collisions, there has not much revolutionary changes for national economy.
I want to explain the situation like this. In doing everything, there must be some golden time. Because of those kind of the conflicts between the government and the National Assembly, and between the government and the labor union, we lost golden time in dealing with this issue. If we prepare more than they did, definitely we could minimize the damages caused by this decision. Otherwise, if we make a more time to make a final decision, definitely we could find a better way to overcome the economic difficulties.
I don't know how many people will be in agreement with me, but I'm anxious because the source of major anxiety and concern for consumers and manufacturers in South Korea is not so much about reform measures rejected, but it's the absence of reliable and streamlined master plan proposed by the government. Something that even the critics of the government policy can easily understand. And the lack of direction of the national economy, which will remain in the same uncertain and unstable condition until the constitutional court's decision on the president's impeachment will be reached. It will remain as a major source of anxiety for Korean consumers and manufacturers in the new year.
Right.
Well, there was also the Anti-Corruption Act that went into effect this year. It did force a lot of people to change their habits and interactions with others, but it does seem to be a step in the right direction. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, the major purpose of the Geunhye Act, anti-graft law, is not to make a major changes overnight, but in order to give the society opportunity to learn and increase the right practice and increase the transparency of their business transactions. And it seems like nobody has been arrested for the violation of Geunhye law.
Not yet.
Not yet, right. All three of us are still here, and this reminds me of the previous segment of this program that we talked about the likely impact of the Geunhye Act. And only difference I could tell you is that the menu has been changed for the end of year parties.
And everyone has to pitch in.
Right. We cannot underestimate the people's capacity to adjust to new changes.
Yeah. So those were the major domestic news of the past year. Turning our eyes outside of the country now, there were also a lot of major headlines from elsewhere around the world. Here's our global year in review.
There has been no improvement in the appalling human rights violations in the country. The nature and scale of the violations occurring in DPRK thoroughly underscore the link between human rights and peace and security.
82,000.
The EU's failing, the EU's dying. I hope we've knocked the first brick out of the wall. I hope this is the first step towards a Europe of sovereign nation states.
To introduce to you the President-elect of the United States of America, Donald Trump.
On our victory. My agenda will be based on a simple core principle, putting America first. Whether it's producing steel, building cars, or curing disease.
Professor Shin, what was the most shocking and therefore memorable event for you?
I'm an economist, so Brexit was the most shocking event for me. Well, as you know, the EU was established in 1951 by the signing of Treaty of Paris, and then in 1957 they signed the Treaty of Rome. It became the founding treaty of the European Union. And in fact, the UK was not the founding members of the European community. Actually, they want to form the economic integration with the Northern European countries. But they failed, so they joined to the European community in 1973. And since that time on, UK was one of the three main members of the European community. But because of Brexit, the European Union itself got huge damages. Well, as you know, London is one of the three major financial centers in the world, and by the decision that the UK made, to leave the European community, European Union, the international global financial market was shaken. And the value of the UK pounds was devalued very dramatically. Well, actually, those kind of things can be a direct threats to the global economy, because that, as we discussed many times, the global economy has been slowed down over the last several years consecutively. So definitely, in the middle of those kind of economic difficulties, the stability of the financial market seems to be very important, but it was broken off because of the Brexit. Mm-hmm. And there is another kind of some spreading effects because of the EU's economic challenges. Definitely, American economy was also hit by the Brexit. We don't have to say about the economic impact given to the third world countries. Lots of the money, just returned to the safer market. Mm-hmm. That means that the economic difficulties, the imposing on the third world countries seems to be more and more difficult, heavier than before. So definitely Brexit was one of the shocking event for me in the later part of the 2016.
Mm-hmm. It was such a shocking event to me as well, because I thought that the crisis of European Union would come from other countries with more fragile financial conditions, like Spain, or we've been talking about Brexit, not Brexit,
right.
But the punch came from UK, not from Greece or Spain or even Turkey.
More than anything, Brexit made us realize that anything is possible.
Anything is possible.
Including the election, the surprise election of Donald Trump.
Your last comment really forced me to plead guilty as charged. Yes, I'm one of the many so-called experts who boldly made the wrong prediction about the U.S. presidential election.
You and Professor Shin.
Yes,
all of us.
Yes, I like to gently protest that you didn't have to remind me of the same mistake over and over again. But that's a part of the challenges to the world community that we are now living in the age of globalization, in which predicting capability of experts and intellectuals and institutions are dwindling and scarce commodities. Now we cannot really rely on anything, any data with confidence. So the sense of anxiety and uncertainty that has been threatening the political stability in many countries has been even further exacerbated by surprising election results in the year 2016.
Yeah, I remember, Professor Shin, you
Yes, I did.
supported Hillary Clinton's election.
I did, because particularly I worry about the protectionistic trade policy which Mr. Trump insisted. Because as I said before, the global economy has been slowed down over the last several years. In the middle of such a kind of economic difficulties, protectionism seems to be one of the fatal blows against the global economy. So I really worry about the situations could be resulted by the more protectionistic trade policies taken by the USA government.
Well, as an economist, I suppose you wanted a more predictable path.
Yes, yes.
Right? Well, along with Trump, a few other leaders have been receiving more attention for their strong and sometimes forceful leadership. I'm talking about Japan's Shinzo Abe, China's Xi Jinping, and Russia's Vladimir Putin. What are some things we need to keep in mind when engaging in diplomacy with these leaders?
We have witnessed the emergence of so-called strong leaders. I mean, in times of uncertainty and anxiety, it is understandable that population would be gravitated toward leaders with a strong voice or clearer messages. But at the same time, the emergence of those very strong leaders would generate very confrontational and competitive interstate relations. So a slight mistake in diplomacy may lead to a very big disaster. So caution is needed. And we are only in the early stage of the new diplomacy that will be waged by the Donald Trump administration of the United States. So I wouldn't really go as far as predicting the conflict-driven world order to come in the new year, but there should be some kind of resettings agreed by a group of these strong leaders.
We also remember there was a spate of terror attacks which left behind a lot of victims. The most recent Christmas market attack in Germany has further challenged Chancellor Angela Merkel's open-door policy for refugees. Do you think things will be more difficult now for people fleeing from their home countries?
Certainly, the recent terrorist attack in Germany is a great challenge to not only the German leadership but also the international society to uphold respect for human rights. Imagine in any usual settings in the Christmas season, families would take their members to a lot of lovely celebrations, but that kind of normalcy, the normal way of celebrating year's end or major holidays now have become such a luxury or something that you cannot really comfortably count on or expect. That is the danger of globalization. Globalization really exacerbates the uncertainties. The function of sovereign borders used to be give the population sense of the normalcy and protection, but now national borders have become so porous. So the government's capability to provide reliable protection of population has been on decline, but the expectation for the sovereign governments to provide a reliable national security has rapidly increased. This gap has been source of the political grievances and criticism among population that have been manifested in very surprising political outcomes, including the Brexit and the election of Mr. Donald Trump in the United States and the numerous terrorist attacks in Europe. The sociologist Benjamin Barber warns us that if the globalization fails to be under control, then there will be two choices for people locked in the very difficult situation. One is to resort to religious fanaticism, fundamental values, like it's a world of jihad or IS. The other choice that people will make is just called capitalism. Everything is commodity. No norms, no values, no human relations. But everything is just transactions and commodity. In between, human decency and respect for democracy will be lost. So it will be a grave challenge to the world and each sovereign state.
Well, along with these major news events, there were a number of key words on the internet driving social discourse. Here is a rundown of some of the top keywords of the year.
Public interest in the unprecedented power abuse scandal was reflected directly in top keywords and hashtags online. In the latter half, words like candlelight protests and monopolizing state affairs were the most popular search terms, while in the first 6 months of the year, the opposition bloc's filibuster against an anti-terrorism bill drew some of the greatest attention. Pokemon Go was the most popular term searched on Google this year, although the service was only available in limited areas within Korea. Another popular search term in the tech sector was Go Master Lee Sedor's match against artificial intelligence AlphaGo. AlphaGo claimed a 4-1 victory. In addition, due to an unexpected earthquake in the city of Geunhye in September, a lot of people looked up how to respond to earthquakes, while the so-called Ring of Fire, where a lot of strong tremblers are said to erupt, also received attention worldwide.
In relation to the influence peddling scandal, terms like hidden power and monopolizing state affairs topped the charts on local portal sites. A lot of people had been unfamiliar with these terms until very recently.
Yes. Well, when you heard these words or expression firstly, we couldn't understand what they mean, what they meant to us. But these days, everybody knows. They're very familiar with these words. And to make me worry more is that, as I said before, maybe we have to listen to these kind of words
for a few more months.
For 4 months. That is one of the agony which I have.
Yeah. There were also more positive keywords, on the other hand, like candlelight protest and filibuster that received a lot of support from the public. What impact do you think this has had on society as a whole?
Well, these new syndromes certainly will help boost the confidence of South Korean people in believing the political system. Yes, political system has been a source of disappointments and cynicism, but at the same time, this people's participation in democracy and their effort to protect constitutional order will actually strengthen their belief and confidence in the political institutions. So you have this positive trend that South Korean citizens exercising their citizens' right as members of a democratic society away from violent actions. In the past, taking violent actions used to be justified, that we are pursuing very lofty goals, so some partial resort to violent actions should be condoned and justified. That argument is conspicuously absent in this year's series of demonstrations.
Indeed.
That means that South Korean citizens seems to have acquired sufficient confidence that we can make important changes. We can make meaningful changes within the existing political system by resorting to acceptable and legitimate means, including filibustering at the National Assembly and peaceful demonstration in the street.
There are also a couple of tech-related keywords, AlphaGo and Pokemon Go. You remember the historic match that pitted Google's artificial intelligence AlphaGo against Korean Baduk master Lee Sedol. What did you think of the result?
Well, when I think about the match, I got one question, fundamental question, that is, well, the AI could control us in the near future. Surprisingly, when I have some meeting with many people, many of them said that we will be controlled by the AI. I mean, so we cannot say it is perfectly believable situation or not. But anyway, I think there must be some possibility. AI will affect our life more closely, more directly. So that's definitely, we got some lesson from this match. It means that we have to think about the relationship between the human beings and the AI.
I read an article in the Business Journal recently that the main and the correct response to the arrival of AI is not for human beings try to outmaster the artificial intelligence, but focus on developing something that machines cannot provide, which is that only humans have, which is compassion. Your capability to place yourself in somebody else's situation. So I thought that there will be some alternative jobs available for me.
Well, we had plenty of headline grabbers in the spotlight this year. As usual, media outlets have their own top picks for the person of the year. Time Magazine, Financial Times, and AFP chose U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. Some of the other candidates were Hillary Clinton, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Now, in Korea, the list included President Park Geun-hye, former Supreme Court Justice who was behind the anti-graft law Kim Young-nan, Man Booker International Prize winner Han Gang, as well as Paduk or Go Master Lee Se-dol. So let me ask you two, who do you think should be the person of the year?
I think the Mr. Trump as the person of the year 2016, simply because he is the person who will decide the future of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, he has the most influential person on the future of the global economy and global politics.
Dr. Bong?
I would also select Mr. Donald Trump. The bottom line is that against all odds, he won the election. Nobody gave him a chance, but he defeated all the opponents and rivals and won the presidential election.
Yes.
So we have to give credit where credit is due.
Well, as for the four-character idiom of the year, Korean university professors chose Gunju Minsu, the king is the boat and the common people water, meaning the water can either support or capsize the vote. This is, of course, in reference to the Korean public being the driving force behind the president's impeachment vote in response to the power abuse scandal. So what kind of proverbs or maxims come to mind when you look back on the year?
I choose the nothing left but a tiger to him spirit. That means that we are in the crisis. So we have to exactly know what we can do and where we are. I think it's very important for us and for the country and for the world. So I choose this words.
Okay, and
I thought about them, but I couldn't really find the right one for me, and instead I recall the Chinese saying that may you live in an interesting time. And the 2016 was a very interesting time for everyone.
Yeah.
And Chinese people think that living in such a tumultuous but interesting time is a blessing.
Well, it's been a blessing to have you both as panelists for the past year. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us, and Happy New Year.
Happy
Happy New Year.
That is all for this edition of News Inside. Thank you for staying with us throughout the year. As we close the last show of 2016, we look ahead to see what your wishes are for the new year. We'll be back next week.
지금 저희 나라가 경제적으로나 많이 힘든데 좋은 대통령이 뽑히셔서 다들 또 회복되는 한 해가 되었으면 좋겠습니다.
정부가 안정이 되고 모든 게 정상적으로 나라가 돌아갔으면 제일 좋겠습니다.
또 빈부격차가 좀 많이 심해지잖아요. 근데 좀 어려운 사람들을 위해서 좀 좋은 환경으로 많은 사람들이 좀 많은 복을 받았으면 하는 그런 바람을 좀 가져봅니다.
청년 수업료 증가?
왜곡된 역사가 아닌 제대로 된 역사를 배우는 날이 왔으면 좋겠습니다.
홍수라든지 가뭄이라든지 없고 그냥 적절하게 지나갔으면 좋겠네요.
지금 진흙탕이잖아요. 연꽃은 진흙탕에서 피니까 언젠간 꽃이 펴서 좀 2017년에 좀 좋은 일이 있지 않을까 그런 바람으로